Rob, thanks for your time. Ben Stokes described England's World Cup campaign as a disaster. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would agree with him actually. I'd agree with what he said as well to the written media at one stage, which you're probably not allowed to say on TV. So, no, it's been incredibly disappointing because we felt that we were a good chance in this competition. All of our focus was on the fact that we thought we were coming out here as one of the favourites, which on paper we were, and we've not lived up to that at all. We've not played anything anywhere close to our potential, which is all you want actually. I never think you can guarantee winning things, especially World Cups. I mean, it's so hard to do, as you well know. But all you want to do is actually go out there and give a good account of yourself, and we've not done that in any way for lots of different reasons. So it's been incredibly disappointing.
Has it tarnished a legacy? It's been a great one-day side for such a long period of time. People will remember the end of it.
No, I don't think so. And you know, I always said actually when O'Morgan retired that his legacy won't be just about winning the World Cup. But there's a whole generation of cricketers coming through playing in a certain style, playing in a certain manner. And actually we've got this conveyor belt still of these young players. One of the harder decisions that we had throughout this, throughout the campaign or before this was, do we bring in some of these young players now? Do we bring in a Will Jacks, a Phil Salt for some of the older guys? Because we've got such a battery full of really talented young batsmen and bowlers coming through. So no, I don't think it will. It's just a blip. Hopefully, I'm hoping it's just a blip, that is, on what's been a fantastic era of white ball cricket, and we just need to get back on track. You know, you can look at it like it's the end of the world, and it's been a disastrous World Cup, there's no doubt about that. But really, it's been 5 weeks where we've made some poor decisions. We haven't been true to our identity, to the way that we want to play the game. In the crucial moments, we've flinched. And, you know, we've not gone about it in the way that we have done for the last however many years.
You touched on it there. I mean, the obvious question people at home will want to know is why. And as you say, not necessarily why you haven't won the World Cup, because nobody has a divine right to do that. There are other very good sides here trying to do exactly the same thing. But why you've fallen so far short of the standards that you've set yourself over such a long period of time?
Well, I think there's a few different reasons for that. For me, like one of them, there's the fact the opposition have improved. You know, where we've stood still over the years, and in fact, we've almost become more conservative, I think, in this competition, where every other team, you know, in 2019 and in the lead up to that, for the 4 years since 2015, our batting was up there. Our batting was miles ahead of anyone else. You get 280, we chase it down with 10 overs to spare. You get 320, we'll chase it down with 5 overs to spare. And our bowling was sort of mid-table. When Jofra came in, it probably went up a notch. But it was the batting that was so far ahead of everyone else. And actually, everyone's bowling was actually pretty good, as we saw in the 2019 World Cup. The Starks, the Hazlewoods, people like that. Rabada for South Africa. Plenty of names to go through. And what's happened is, I think, is that the rest of the world has caught up to our batting as well and having those great bowling attacks, and we've stood still. You know, and actually at times when it was our time to go out there, you know, England at the start, whether it's with the ball or with the bat, they were on the front foot no matter what, and they came at, no matter who was bowling at you, no matter what the conditions, we came at people and we set the tone early. We haven't done that at times in this World Cup. In fact, the time we did it was in the very last game, where we got on a tough pitch where the ball was going around everywhere and it looked like it was like stopping, and you know, there's those green patches, and we actually turned around and went and threw some counter punches back. We tried that, it's not worked in the games before. And then when you get times where you have to soak up pressure, we've not soaked it up at the right time. You know, and times when we've gone hard when we should have gone hard. You know, the decisions that very good players make, we haven't made them at the right times. But it always starts when you set the tone, and that's what we've not done. And we've gone away from when the pressure's been on most, we've gone away from what had got us to the team that we had been, and that's what we've got to get back to.
You've always said that it's the job of the captain and the coach to make sure the players are playing to their full potential, which has clearly not happened in this tournament. Do you have faith in Jos Butler and Matthew Mart as a combination to drive England's one-day cricket forward?
Yeah, I do, and I think they should be the first people to have a real go at it as well, because as you know, it's never simple. The game evolves. That's why it's such a good game, cricket, because the things you know one year, you've got to evolve it the next. And you know, we've got to get back to, as we've been already starting to do, we've got to start getting some clarity on exactly what we're about, what every single role is about. I think what we've done, arguably in this competition, is that we've just thought about who's the best 11 players, then we'll fit them into a team, rather than actually going, right, what do we want from our openers, 1, 2, what do we want from our number 3? And that can then give clarity. And Jos, he's a young captain still. He's been around for a long time. He's the best player in the world, I think, in white ball cricket. All-round player. He's probably the best player we've ever had at this, who's had a tough time in this tournament. But by no stretch do I think that he's done, and he won't get back to what he's done. I think he'll be a better captain for this. It's always the hard times that make you as a leader. It's always those things. And this is the first real tough time that he's had. And I think he's going to be so much better for it.
I might ask you a supplementary question about each of them, actually. I think Matthew Mott was selected as a coach because you wanted somebody who was just going to keep a good thing going. England's one-day cricket was in a very good state. If now the job is to regenerate and rebuild a one-day team, do you need a coach with a different set of skills?
No, because I think you've got to be able to adapt as a coach. So you've got to be able to adapt to your team. So when you have a senior team of great players like we have here, there's a different way you've got to manage them to what it is now if you get with a slightly younger team. You might end up having more influence on a slightly younger team when you've got a coach, and you're absolutely right. The test team needed someone like a McCullum to come in and go, right, we're going to rip up the rule book here, and then Stokes as well, obviously, and it's like, right, we all were aligned, the three of us, on right, we want to change the mentality of the way we play test cricket in this country, and that's what it needed. And the white ball sides actually just needed to keep on going, need to just evolve, just keep on moving forward. And the reason we've done that, I don't think is Matthew Mott and Jos Butlers' fault. The reason that every single time, that's why I find it hard to criticise those guys. Albeit we've had some honest conversations about how we can all improve. But I hold myself accountable more than them. Every single time that, we've had discussions about the team, whether it's been test team or 50 over team or T20 team, I've always said to them, and they haven't complained once, I've always said to them, sorry, you're not getting your best team here now. When it goes right the way back to after the World T20, when we played the 50 over series against Australia, like, sorry, all your best players are going to the test team in Pakistan. The same thing when the test team were in New Zealand and we were in Bangladesh, which was the last series really in these conditions. I was the one that said, you're not having your best team here, I'm very sorry, you're going to have to make do, to the point where people actually were turning down that tour as well. So it was like a double whammy. People, you had David Willey, James Vince, all these people not wanting to go on that trip. So actually, that's very hard for me now, the first time it goes wrong, to turn around and say, oh, by the way, that's all your fault. I'm accountable for that as much as they are, more than they are. And their job is to work out how they can then get this thing back on track and start moving it forward. Because people, regardless of, I'm watching India playing this in their own conditions, as you know, it's been a benefit to be the country playing the World Cup in their country. But India, you look on paper, they look a better side than us at the moment, so we've got to get past them again. So the next time round, Champions Trophy, then into the next World Cup, we're the ones that everyone's trying to catch up, and I believe they can.
And I might ask about Jos Butlers' form. Clearly poor form in this competition. How far leadership has affected that is open to guesswork, I suppose. But if leadership is having that impact on somebody you describe as the best white ball batter in the world, are you sacrificing something from his game if you want him to carry on as captain of the team? Yeah,
and that's, as you say, no one knows that. Jos himself won't know that. What I would say is that, in that World T20, he was the difference. We got lots of good players, we got lots of very good players, and Alex Hales was brilliant, and all these guys. Jos Butlers, we talk about X Factor or whatever nonsense people want to call it. He's that for us. And I agree, the first thing that Jos Butlers, forget about his captaincy or everything, the thing that the key to all of it is his batting. He goes and plays well, it's fine. And so as he goes on this journey, I believe he'll find that balance. And I think he'll be better as a leader because of this, as all leaders are from adversity. But that's something that he'll want to put right. I believe he can. I don't think it will take much, actually. Even like, it's all like a domino effect. Every time he came in, he felt like he was under pressure. And then you've got great bowlers coming at you. But actually in the game against Pakistan, when we set the platform and then we keep on going, Jos Butlers like, oh, there we go, until he gets run out. But, so there's no doubt for all I was a captain for a long time at a much lesser level and batted like an idiot for 9 years as a captain. So I know exactly how hard that is, but I don't feel that, well, one, I think he's better than me by a long way, but I also feel that he'll be able to find it.
Just touch on some of the areas that you've mentioned and some of the areas that people are throwing criticisms at the management for the way this tournament has gone. So let's start with selection. Was the team too old? Have you been too loyal? Should you have seen it coming?
What's that? There's 3 questions there.
All linked.
No, I don't think they were too old at all, actually. I still think there's another world in which we make better decisions, at the start of this World Cup. A few things go away, whatever it is, and we actually start playing well. If we had another 4 or 5 games now, I actually think we'd be a force in this competition. Just when it's mattered, we've not got it right. And that, we've overthought conditions all the time. We've gone away from what do we do, and we've tried to think about what's going to happen in 5 or 6 hours. And they're not. This is a tough place to make those calls. Where you might have 350 being not enough, or you get 230 being more enough, and you've got to work out, and you've got to be agile enough and good enough to adapt. And I believe we had that. If we would have come out here with a young team, I think they would have been, for the first time, faced with conditions and pressure that they've never known before, and it's always a balance. So I don't think that someone like Joe Root, Joe Root's 33. This nonsense that Joe Root's now got to be done in this and that he can't play this format. I mean, how long does he have to be one of the best players we've ever had before people stop saying like, oh, he's done, we'll get rid of Joe Root? I still think, Joe Root's not going to go to the West Indies. It's nothing to do with his form in this. It's the fact that he has played, what's he done? Pakistan, ILT20, then he's gone to New Zealand, then he's gone to the IPL, then he's played the Ashes in what was a great Ashes series, which would have taken so much out of him. Then he's played the 100 because he can never stop playing cricket, Joe. Then he's gone and he's done the ODI series against New Zealand. Then he's got here. Then he's going to have India, where he's going to be crucial for us. So people like Johnny Bairstow, Mart Wood, they're going to be guys that I still believe. Mart Wood, I still think, these guys are going to be the ones that help us win the Ashes out in Australia, the World T20 next year. There's just a time when I believe you always try, and it's like, let's try and win the next game. That's why we didn't try and bring in young players for the back end of this competition. It's like, keep it simple. What's in front of you, win that game. I'll try and keep an eye out for the future, which is what I've got to do better. And I've got to make sure that I'm the one spotting those. These guys can be immersed in this, and I've got to be the one, along with Luke Wright, to actually work out the time when it's like we need some new, fresh blood here.
You mentioned Luke Wright there, who, when this squad was initially announced on August the 16th, it was announced as pretty much the final squad.
Yes.
And then it wasn't the final squad. It was a kind of preliminary, provisional squad, and Harry Brook was obviously the change. Did that destabilise the players in any way, shape or form?
Only they would be able to say that, but I'd say that, when we, the plan was, and how we communicated things was poor. The plan was like, this is the squad, but you never know what might happen. People might get injured, and we've got the opportunity to change it up until then, form and stuff like that. So I'd imagine, you had players, when you're trying to create an environment where you want them to play without fear, and then you're chopping and changing, that's going to add fear to it. No matter what you say, it's like, I keep backing you, but by the way, you're not playing the next game. That makes it hard, and that's what we ended up doing. But it does, I always think as well, we've got to coaches and captains, I say, focus on getting the players playing to their best, because at times in this we played all the all-rounders play poorly. We went for a bowling heavy, with David Willey at 6 and a 7, and a different model. Didn't work.
You mentioned those changes, which came around the South Africa and Sri Lanka game. Correct. 3 changes with each. Was that a case of just the team or the management panicking at that stage? I
don't think it was panicking. It was us probably trying to outthink ourselves a little bit, trying to think about, okay, in India you come to places when you look at it and you think, right, this is where it's going to spin more. And this is where it's going to actually, the seamers are going to come into it. So Dharamshala is somewhere where you can go and you go for your seamers. So you're trying to constantly work out the balance. And we sort of came in probably thinking, right, okay, and not too far, but almost like game by game, thinking, right, look at the conditions now. We think this is the best side to be able to do this. This is the best side to what, if the ball gets wet, it's not about spin so much, it's about having people who can bowl like that. What we should have done was go, don't worry about that. What's our best way? You know, before that, England knew that they were a chasing team. You know, it's like we win the toss, we'll chase regardless of anything really. And we'd gone away from that, not chasing, in the fact that what do we do better, which we did really well in the World T20 last year. We went into it thinking that our strongest suit is chasing. But after a little while, we realised that, you know what, we're much better batting first. So I think now, you know, you look at it, and this is where we've got to be better, and I've got to be better to make sure we don't get those decisions right when it costs you at the start. It's all well and good getting to the end and going, we'll have a bat here. But I always maintain with the toss, you can always lose it. So regardless of all the thing where you go, well, if you'd have just done the right thing at the toss, that would have been all right. Well, what if we'd have lost it? You still got to play better, you know, and at times we just didn't play well enough.
Halfway through the tournament, you announced a list of 29 contracted players. Just talk us through the timing of the negotiations, why those negotiations had to be done when they were done, and then B, the timing of the announcement, which came smack bang in the middle of the tournament, and set off a whole new train of kind of debate.
Well, so the contracts start on October the 1st and have done. You know, the contract year starts then. So you're trying to get it done by that stage, and we're obviously adding in the multi-year element to the contracts. So we managed to get all of the offers out to all the players by around the 19th, 20th, 21st. In that period there, they all knew what they were getting, and all they had to do was say, like, do you know what, if you were offered a 3-year deal, I'll take 2, 1, whatever it was. So they all knew. Then there's the period where, because the actual physical document, you know, which is a big piece of work, there's like 106 pages. So then it's the lawyers just going backwards and forwards about, okay, is this clause right? Is that clause right? So then it was around, I don't know, around the 10th, something like that. You know, everyone knew what they were doing. That was the point when the players were able to sign it, where the Team England Player Partnership said, guys, you're fine to sign these now. So everyone's been sort of sitting on it, and we'd all been sitting on it waiting for the okay. So then I made the decision. So the first thing, where you say, well, why don't you put them off? We go, well, so then we would have been in this point where we'd have been playing badly, and nobody would have had a contract. No player would have known what was going on, whether they were going to get a contract, whether they were going to get paid that month. So the headlines would have been worse, to be honest. The narrative that the media created would have been worse than, so it's the lesser of two evils in that. The announcement came really because since I've started this job, every single thing gets out. You know, players have agents, there's directors of cricket, there's all kinds of people that know the details of these things, that have to know the details of that. And then since I've started, you know, every little thing at the ECB ends up in the paper somewhere. The day I offered 26 contracts and 3 development contracts, it was in the Telegraph, every single one. So I made the call. Well, Ben Stokes has now said, I want a 1 year only. So there's no way that that wasn't going to be a story. And that as soon as they all sign, it would have been the headline, England captain signs 1 year deal, turns down England's multi-year deal, all of this stuff. So I said, you know what, let's just get ahead of this. That's what we try and do all the time. It's like, let's just get it out there so we take away some of the noise from the players. And I believe, actually, again, it was the lesser of two evils. I'd love to live in this world where you can just go put that off for a bit. It doesn't work like that. You always have decisions to make. They're tough decisions, and you go for the one that's the lesser of the two evils.
Nevertheless, you had a player in David Willey who admitted last night after the game that on the eve of the World Cup, he wasn't sure whether he was going to get on the plane or not, because even though he'd been selected, he was so disappointed about not being offered a central contract.
Yeah, and you know, you always look back. I always think whether you're right or wrong, you look back and think, would you do it again? And unfortunately for David Willey, I would. You know, we're going to a point now with these central contracts where we've got the 26 plus the 3 development contracts. All of those young bowlers on that, they're all at different, they're not all on the same money. all of those young bowlers, they're out in the they're just about to go to the UAE. Our next era of English cricket is going to revolve around. It's not going to be the Broad Anderson and these guys that are going to take us into the next great era. It's going to be the next generation who are all on these contracts now. They're all going to go to the UAE and they're all going to be working, getting ready for India and whatever else it is. You know, we want bowlers that can bowl in every phase. The next iteration of white ball cricket, we've got lots of batsmen. We've got to have, you know, the bowlers that compete with the Shamis, the Bumrahs, the Cummins, the Hazlewoods, all of these guys who are rocking up at 85 mile an hour bowling in every single phase. You know, so we're always going to get to a point where we've David Willey, you know, and I'm really pleased that he got his send off. And in the past, you know, like I saw the interview he did with Ian Ward where he said, you know, he's always thinking about retiring, you know, and then he got the call for the World Cup and now he's retired. He didn't have to retire. You know, like, so that was the last nail in the coffin, as it were, for him, and that's fine. You know, I think it's come to a good end for David Willey, and I'm pleased that he's done that. And actually, you know, you talk about the contracts, did it create, you know, what did it do? Well, it made David Willey play better.
Can we touch on some of the broader issues? We've been looking at the specifics of this tournament, particularly. Broader issue around 50 over cricket and England's players, and particularly England's young players. Are you happy that they're playing enough 50 over cricket? What seems to have emerged from this competition as much as anything is just maybe how different it is from T20. You've already touched on the fact that because of a Bazball and the need to regenerate the test team, a lot of your focus and resources was put on the test team to the detriment of the 50 over team, but also England's young cricketers, because of the Metro Cup being played below the 100 and not getting that opportunity in 50 over cricket. Are you happy that they're getting enough exposure?
Yeah, look, I think that we've got the skills to be able to play, you know, really good 50 over cricket. I certainly don't think, you know, like domestically, I have no issue, you know, that with the schedule of what that is. That's fine. I accept that. I think internationally we need to be better. I mean, the problem is the Future Tours programme is sort of set, but we've got to start working out when we've got that format in that year. We've got to make sure we've got enough cricket going into it so that you can look. So if you want to work out who the best 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whoever it is in every position, because what we had to do really, we had, you know, probably almost like 9 months worth of time, but that was 6 games. You know, it was 3 games in South Africa and 3 games, I think, in Bangladesh, and then we were picking it. So we had to make those calls then. We couldn't then go, right, have, you know, the loyalty that you want to give to players, you've got no choice at times because you haven't got loads of international 50 over cricket. But I'm also aware that, you know, it's not a perfect world and there's lots of different reasons. There's lots of different reasons for why things happen. You know, I still believe, are we producing the talent to do it? And I think the answer is yes.
You've just announced the 50 over squads and T20 squads for the Caribbean, which the T20 squad is you're forward looking towards the World T20, and obviously the 50 over squad you're starting a regeneration now for the next cycle. Some of the headline emissions would be Root, Bairstow, Wood, Milan, players who are obviously involved here. Just talk us through those emissions and how far some are rested and how far some are left out on form. Yeah,
so people like Mart Wood, Johnny Bairstow, Joe Root. As I said with Joe Root, the amount he's played, Johnny Bairstow, who had that horrific injury, and then we threw him straight into the Ashes, little break, played the 100, into the T20 and 50 over series versus New Zealand, then to here. He needs a block of time, and I've said this to Johnny, where he just needs to get himself in good order. You know, he's had this horrendous injury where he's not stopped, so he needs a break, but he also needs to be able to make sure he can get through an India Test tour, you know. The same with Joe Root, same with Mart Wood. David Milan in T20 cricket, his form over the last year, as we've said to him, just hasn't warranted selection. But that doesn't mean that he's out the running. It doesn't mean that we've drawn a line and stuck a fork in him and said, you're done. He's probably going to have franchise cricket, as a lot of these guys who have missed out will do, to show us what they can do. And that's the difference with T20 cricket. You know, if they're not playing for England, they're playing in a high standard somewhere, whether it's South Africa, whether it's, you know, the IPL. They'll be playing lots of 20 over cricket. and that's his opportunity to get back in. And what we're doing, we're going down very clear to people. It's like, right, 1, 2, 3, we want aggressive openers and an aggressive number 3, and that's what you've got to do. If you want to get into that team, that's what it's got to be.
We talked about some of the big name omissions there, some of the people who've been selected, likes of Ben Duckett, Will Jacks, Phil Salt, who are not here. Are you confident that they can achieve in the next cycle what this great white ball team has achieved in the past?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough act to follow. There's no doubt about that. Do they have the talent to do it? Yeah, I think they do. When you look around, I sort of feel like we always felt we were going into a world of white ball cricketers and red ball cricketers. Actually, what I'm seeing is it's not. You look at the other teams, a lot of these players, the David Warner, David Warner, you talk about being too old, David Warner's moving as well as anyone and is playing as well as anyone. And that's what we need. The best bowlers are the best bowlers across formats at the moment. And I believe we've got the potential for the bowlers to be able to do that. The Atkinsons, the Tongues, the Woods, all of these guys, sorry, Woody's been around a while, can represent England across all formats and take us into a great era of English cricket. It'd be some act to follow that.
Can I ask about your role? You came into this position out from TV, from outside, with little management experience, and at the start everything you touched turned to gold. Bazball, McCullum, Stokes. I don't know what the reverse of Midas touch here, but it seems to have been the case in this World Cup. How much do you look at the decisions that you have made, the impact that you've made, and have you looked and thought, well, I should have done that better, I could have done this differently? I've just listened to you in the written press conference, and you talked about not having anybody here on the coaching staff who had local experience, local Indian experience. Do you think you will get better from this experience?
Yeah, of course, that's what you do. All I ever really look at first is what I've done. That's what you do in life. I think it's the only way you do get better, and you just try and work out, okay, the first place you always start is yourself. I look at things like I'm involved in selection, involved in who gets, how you focus on these things. I've got to try and make sure that I'm getting the schedule to a better point, which is not easy, by the way. These things are all set before I came in. There's plenty of things. I think, the day you think you don't have to improve is the day you're probably a rubbish leader, to be honest. And there's plenty of them.
Thank you.
Cheers.